WM Show 95, written by Martin Kpetigo, read by Alaba Tibor. Has African democracy ever delivered for the people? Democracy came to Africa with a promise that leaders would serve the people, that freedom would bring dignity, and that every African would finally be treated with respect. But after decades of elections and political transitions, the ordinary African still wonders whether democracy has truly delivered, or whether we have simply been changing faces while the system itself stays weak and unchanged. Across West Africa, citizens vote with hope. They stand in long lines, trust the ballot, and expect leadership that will finally improve their daily lives. Yet when the political noise fades, life remains the same. Leaders know how to perform democracy, but not how to practice it. Power becomes personal, government becomes a privilege, and the people become spectators in a nation meant to belong to them. Institutions that should protect the citizen now protect the powerful. Courts bend toward political interests. Parliaments obey party commands. Anti-corruption offices act slowly, selectively, and often not at all. Even Ghana, long praised as the gateway to Africa, is struggling with the basics of accountability. Former Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta was summoned for a criminal investigation into decisions he made while in office. This was not symbolic, it was a serious call for answers. Yet nearly a year has passed and he has not appeared. No urgency, no accountability, no respect for due process. And in Ghana today, due process has become slow process. A slow process that politicians depend on because delay becomes protection and time becomes a shield. Instead of insisting on justice, the administration delays. The explanations grow, and the office of the special prosecutor appears stuck inside the same slow machinery instead of enforcing accountability. To make matters worse, the former minister is reportedly residing comfortably abroad, engaging freely with foreign democratic nations, while declining to return for questioning, and no extradition process has been initiated. When justice slows down for the powerful, democracy begins to collapse from within. And these failures create something even more dangerous. They teach politicians that they are above the law. They begin to believe they are untouchable. They believe the system exists to protect them, not to question them. And when leaders learn they cannot be held accountable, democracy begins to die. Ghana is supposed to be the democratic model for West Africa, but when the model refuses to prosecute wrongdoing, when it delays justice, when it protects powerful names instead of protecting the people, it sends the wrong signal across the region. No nation is an island. What happens in Ghana affects all of West Africa. If Ghana cannot hold its leaders accountable, how can any other nation claim a higher standard? Look at Côte d'Ivoire, look at Cameroon, look at Togo. These are not democracies in the true sense. These are nations where leaders stay in power for decades, some ruling longer than entire generations have been alive. Yet these same leaders shout loudly in the marketplace when coups arise in neighbouring countries. They speak about constitutional order. They speak about democratic principles. But how can you shout about democracy when you do not practice it at home? How can you preach constitutional rule when you break your own constitutions to remain in power? This is the hypocrisy that is destroying West Africa. This is how one country's weakness becomes another country's crisis. This is how failure in one democracy quietly encourages a coup in another. People across the region see the patterns, they see the delays. They see the protection of the powerful and they lose faith that justice can ever work for them. And that loss of faith is what fuels coups. Mali, Burkina Faso, Guinea, and Niger did not fall because Africans hate democracy. They fell because democracy stopped protecting the people. When corruption is ignored, when institutions collapse, when leaders silence accountability, the people stop defending the system. And once the people stop defending democracy, soldiers step into the vacuum. Then ECOWAS appears, shouting about constitutional rule and demanding a return to democratic governance. But many of those shouting the loudest are the same leaders who undermine democracy within their own borders. They condemn soldiers, yet ignore their own abuses of power. They punish coup governments, but never punish themselves. And that double standard has destroyed ECOWAS's moral authority. Democracy cannot survive on hypocrisy. It cannot survive where justice collapses. It cannot survive where institutions shield the powerful instead of protecting the people. And so Africans ask one honest question: when will our leaders learn to do right by their people? When will leadership mean service and not privilege? When will institutions defend the citizen instead of the politician? When will justice apply to every name, not only the powerless? But even in disappointment, hope remains. A new generation is rising, young Africans who refuse silence, who demand fairness, dignity, and truth. They understand that democracy is not just the act of voting, it is the daily practice of accountability, transparency, and service. Africa can still build the democracy it was promised, but it will only happen when leaders stop performing democracy and start living it. When institutions stand firm, when justice becomes real, and when every African finally feels the system working for them. This is MWM on Show 95, written by Martin Kpetigo, read by Alaba Tibor. Martin, if you want longer...